Question for you. Do you know the difference between a swell and a rise? Are they the same thing? Let's talk about it. Stick around. A rise is a sound that's changing pitch, generally going up, and either an octave or 2 octaves going into a chorus or a bridge. It can be used for all kinds of things. It builds energy but uses pitch to do that. So here's an example. All right, so that you can obviously hear the pitch changing. Let's grab another example. That's a little bit more complicated one, but overall the pitch changes. So what is a swell? A swell is something that gives us energy by just increasing dynamics in the instrumentation other than pitch, especially in volume, that give us a sense of energy change. So here's one here. Notice that the pitch never changed in that. It built energy without the pitch changing. Let's do another one. Now you can hear a lot of things going on there. It's a pretty cool patch. By the way, all these patches that I'm showing you right now, this is from the Ascension package that Ilio sells. A buddy of mine, Michael Babbitt, created this, and I highly recommend it. So check it out. I'll have it in the show notes below. So I'm going to show you now some examples of how to create a rise, and next week we'll talk about how to create a swell. And we're going to actually do this in Massive, but it can be done in Omnisphere or any of your other synths as well. Let's get started. So let's dig into this. I've got Massive here, and what we're going to do is we're going to start in session view. We're going to create a clip. We're going to insert a MIDI clip, and I want this to be, you know what, for sake of argument, let's do this a 4-bar rise. So typically I would probably do an 8-bar rise most of the time, but for this example, because it's going to take longer, let's just do a 4-bar. So right now, if I play this, all right, actually, let's just clear this out here. We're going to start with a brand new sound. Okay, I've got a note on C3, and I'm going to turn the loop off on this clip. So when I activate this, we'll turn all these off here. And when I activate this, that's what I get. So the very first thing I do, I don't want to create a sound from scratch. I want to just modify a sound and make it into a swell or a rise. So let's go to our browser. Let's just jump into something here. Let's just look in the factory presets and try to find something we like. Let's try just jumping over to synth leads. They make great rises. I like that one. Cream Flash. It's got a lot of, it sounds like a lot of saw waves, and it's pretty thick sound. So we're going to just start with this sound, jump over to synth, and we're going to start modifying it. First thing I do, I turn off these macros. I don't like these macros on. They're helpful if you're automating with a controller, but we're not going to be doing that. And we're going to just start modifying this the way we want it. So right now I'm using my keyboard to play the sound manually, but I've got this sound. If I crank the filters, I can start. Ooh, that's going to make a great lead. All right. Just checking out what they did on this sound. They're using the oscillations. They're using actually 3 different oscillators, and they're using the modulation, OSC, and they're modulating the ring mod. I'm sorry, they're just modulating phase is all they're doing. And they've got noise as well to add a little bit of color and distortion. They've got one insert attached to this. They're using some reverb and delay. As far as envelopes and LFOs, of course, they're using number 4 to drive the amplitude, and everything else is actually not being modified. So this is going to be pretty nice and clean start here. Okay, the first thing we want to do is we want to actually use this note down here. I'm going to show you 2 different ways to make this. The first way is going to be, I'm going to modulate the pitch of this synth using my clip editor. So what we're going to do is go over to the envelope area, and I'm going to actually draw in a envelope. I'm just going to actually make a rise from totally neutral to as maximum as it will. This is representing the pitch wheel, basically. So now I'm going to go into massive, and let's take a look at. We want to this oscillator. We want all our oscillators actually to go in the pitch bin. We want them to go 2 octaves, so that's 24 semitones. And just in case we go down, which we probably won't, but in case we go down, we want 24 negative semitones. Our voicing, we've got four unison voices in this, and actually I'm going to give it a little bit of width. So let's do this. Okay, just gives me a little bit of width. So I'm ready to go. I've got 3 oscillators, and I want to bring that pitch up. So now, okay, it's going already from, again, 0, or just neutral semitones, just wherever the pitch is defined here, all the way to up to 2 octaves. So it's a little high already, so I know it is. Let's just do a quick, let's bring this down an octave. So we're going to go to C2, start there, and let's see how that sounds. Pretty cool, not bad at all. Let's do something else. We want to thicken this up a little bit, so let's actually take one of these oscillators and let's pitch it down another octave. So this one is going to sound like this, and this one is going to sound like this. Okay, that one I want to bring down an octave. So you notice that there's a 0.95. They've actually offset some of the pitch a little bit to make it so that there's a variation in the pitch. It creates sort of a chorus sound. If all of these were zeroed out, and they're perfect octaves from each other, it's not quite as interesting. It's not as thick a sound. So let's see how that sounds. Okay, and then we've got this one. We're going to turn that on. Pretty cool. And then this last one, let's turn on. That sounds pretty good. All right. And of course, you can modify this. You can come up with a different oscillation waveform if you want to. You could automate all these different parameters, but we're going to keep it pretty simple. We're going to use the serial, put our filters in serial, and a lot of your sound for swell, for intensity, is going to actually come from these filters. So I'm going to hit this button here. Okay, I got this oscillator going on this oscillator. Let's start with just one of these. I'm going to turn one of them off, and we're going to do this again. I'm going to put this on a loop so we can hear it. And I'm going to mess with it, okay? So here we go. Okay, I can already tell that this oscillator is going to really benefit from this cutoff moving. So again, this is actually, I'm going to be tying into, I'm using a swell technique that I'll talk more about next week, on top of this rise to give it more dynamics. So I'm going to grab an envelope. Let's just take number 1. And I could use this attack like this. And in fact, we should probably just do it this way. I'm going to have no decay time, no release, pull down these levels. I've got this part of the envelope turned off. I've just got this long attack, basically. I'm going to throw that onto this cutoff, and we're going to just see what that sounds like now. Let's slow this down just a little bit. I'm going to slow down the tempo since this isn't really a real song. Just okay. I'm going to take the loop off because we're going to treat this as if it's a single rise. And you can tell I've got a little reverb and delay. That gives me a tail to add to the end of it. You don't have to have that. If you wanted to, we could turn that off, and we could kill in the voicing, we can kill, or I'm sorry, the envelope number 4, which is your pitch. Let's get rid of these here. You could go like this, and it would just kill the tail of this rise. Okay, that's a little too dead for me. For my taste, I think it sounds a lot more interesting if there's a little bit of a tail, especially if you're going from like a chorus in, or a verse into a chorus, something that's building up. You want if every instrument is only designated to its own part of the arrangement of the song, then it's not as interesting as if things tie together. By doing this, by adding a little bit of a tail using the amplitude envelope, sorry. So at the end of after the key is released, it's going to drop off in amplitude like this. And I can control how much time that is through this release key. So now if we do that, and I added some reverb and delay into that as well. Actually, that was already in this patch, but it sounds good to me. Maybe a little less delay. In fact, let's do that. Let's just take that off and maybe pull this down a little bit. We're going to turn that off, and let's just turn the reverb off as we figure this out, how it's going to sound. Pretty cool. Feedback's a little high on that. I don't want it to drag on forever. I just want one good echo in that. And let's pull this down to 1. Maybe a little more feedback and just 1. Let's see how that... Pretty nice. Add a little bit of reverb, and let's see how that sounds. Pretty cool. If you wanted to thicken this up even more, you could add more reverb or chorus. You could add all kinds of different colorations to this. Okay, let's talk about another way to create a rise in massive. This is probably a better way. We're going to keep the same note value that we have in our clip, but let's get rid of this envelope completely. We're going to actually change the value of the pitch within massive itself. We're going to have a lot more options if we do it this way. So right now, the sound would sound like this. We still have, you can tell that filter is working through this cutoff, or the envelope is working through the cutoff, but the actual note is not changing at all. In fact, let's go ahead and shift that note down a little bit more. So we're going to go in here, grab it, put it down. So now, there it is. All right. So what I want to do is I want to actually build that pitch envelope within massive. The way I'm going to do this is we're going to start with we're going to start with our cutoff envelope. We're going to just grab that and we're going to drop it in the pitch value of each one of these oscillators. So we're going to say I want this to go from 0 all the way to 24 semitones from wherever it's starting. This one's going to start an octave lower, and already it's going to be doing something. So let's just see what that does. Pretty cool. The only problem with this is that I don't know how long this attack time here is. So we have to just use our ears to figure that out, because otherwise it'll go back to this spot over here, which is where the decay level is. And actually, what we'll do is we'll push the decay level all the way up. In case it goes through this envelope early, it'll just stop up here before the note is released. Just like that. Okay, so it's still not quite long enough, so let's adjust the attack time. So this is a 4 bar, so a little too long. We want it to get all the way through the octave. Okay, let's go just a little bit further. Pretty good. All right, now that we have that, it's going up 2 octaves. Again, this is going very quickly. If we wanted to make this a little longer, we could, or we could just slow down the tempo for this example. So I'll put it to 88 here. Okay, now we're going to have to increase the attack time because we adjusted the speed of the tempo. Okay, a little too much. Pull it back a little bit. Pretty good. I'm going to pull back just a hair more. Okay, cool. Now let's add other elements to this, because I want more energy to this. I want this definitely have more energy. So I want to bring down, I think I'm going to bring down a couple of these oscillators to a little bit lower point. That sounds a little better already. And maybe boost the lows just because I want a little more energy. Okay. The reverb and delay, we're just going to leave those. Those are fine. But I also want to add a tail to this, and I want to add more energy. So what can we do to add energy? If we go to our voicing, we can make this a little more give it a little more stereo image. Okay, we could, if we wanted to, add a little bit more. This is just the pitch cut off here, but that'll detune it a little bit, and I don't want to do it too much. So I think where it was is just fine. This is monophonic, doesn't really matter, but if we want to, we can go ahead and put that on there. And our oscillator, we're going to leave alone here, but let's look at this let's add a little bit of vibrato to this. To do that, what we're going to do is, if I just went ahead and cranked this right now and listen to it, I'm going to put this on loop. Okay, you can definitely hear the vibrato there now. I'm maxing that out pretty. Okay, but what if it started down here and did this? Okay, I like that. Let's grab envelope number 1 because we know it's about a 4 bar. We controlled the attack on that. And let's start from here, and we're going to go up to about there. So it's going to start here in the envelope. Remember, it starts down here and goes up to there. And we're going to move all the way to... it's a little too much, and it's a little too squiggly. So let's pull this down a little bit. Now we've added more energy to it in the form of vibrato, which is pretty cool. Pretty cool. We could have done it here if we wanted to as well. You can do an internal envelope, or you can do it with the envelope here. So either way is fine. I want to add a tail now to it. So after I let go, I want it to tail off a little bit more. So let's control envelope number 4. We're going to add a little bit more release to it. So it's actually going to come down in volume after it's done. Okay. Okay. Now I actually want the pitch. I want to hear the pitch slide off a little bit. Okay. Not enough there. So we're going to add a little bit more, a little more volume to the end of it. You hear that squeak at the end? Okay, it's going back too fast in the pitch, so let's increase that quite a bit. Okay, so now we've got that cool little tail thing happening here. So let's do that again. Cool. I'm going to actually change this, make it go a little slower. So I want to reach that note. Okay. Now we can actually hear the note before it drops off. Again, this was just with one cutoff knob. If we wanted to, we could add another one, maybe a scream filter in here. See how that sounds. Okay. Let's loop this so that we can hear it continue to play. Let's add, let's just throw envelope 1 on there and do something like this. Cool. Now, let's do something else here. What about adding a little bit of panning back and forth in this? How about we use one of our LFOs to do that? We'll drop an LFO in there. Oops, I apologize. Not there. I meant over here. Here, we're going to turn that off. Okay. Now, if I maximize that. But that gives it even more, even more dynamics to the sound. What if we sped up the rate as it went faster? So we'll grab number 1 and actually automate that. So we're going to automate the rate. Pretty cool. And actually, I'm going to go a little further with that. Now we got some action going. Pretty awesome. Let's put that even further. Awesome. If we don't want quite as much, we can pull that back. So now we got vibrato, we've got panning movement, we've got a cutoff movement, we got 2 filters, and the pitch is moving. Every time we hit a note, all of that's happening. And we have a tail. Pretty awesome. I think we made a pretty good riser right there. That is it for this week. I know that was a little bit long, but hopefully you learned something. Let me know if you have any questions. Thank you, Craig, for sending in the request this week. Come back next week. I'll have another video for you, and keep recording. Stay frosty. Later.